Today on Maury, Worf, you are the father. Picard is involved in stuff he shouldn't be involved in. And we ask the question, couldn't Kaylar have called Worf a little earlier with this bombshell? Stick with us.
Welcome to the TNG Podcast, the number one place in the Alpha Quadrant to geek out about all things Star Trek: The Next Generation. I'm your co-host, Shereese.
Hey, I'm your co-host, Andrea. Today we're talking Season 4, Episode 7, Reunion, written by Drew Deegan and directed by stud of the universe, Jonathan Frakes.
Whoop, whoop. Pew, pew, pew.
Pew, 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 indeed. All right, so Captain Picard is selected to arbitrate the selection of a new chancellor for the Klingon Empire, and in doing so, finds out who dishonorably murdered the old chancellor. Also involved is genuine badass Ambassador Kaylar, who has a surprise for
Bum, bum, bum.
Yeah, for sure.
So my initial thoughts for this episode, I know you don't love Klingon episodes, but I
do not.
Loved this episode because I love Kaylar. She's so great.
She's so fucking great. Susie Plaxton, come on. What an amazing actress.
And also I really like the arc of the whole thing having to do with Worf and Kittimer. Like for some reason, they stretch this story out across all 7 seasons before it's like satisfied. But the story arc itself of like what actually happened at Kittimer, what happened, who was there, like all that stuff is like a really, really fascinating story. And I think it gives really good context to all the Klingon episodes that have to do with that. Back in season 1, we just had some Klingon episodes where it was just like, Klingons are on board, rah! And it just those are the
Klingon episodes I don't like. Those are the ones I don't like. The ones that have to do with like Kittimer and the backstory of like Worf's father's betrayal, like that's a fabulous story arc that spans like all 7 seasons. And those ones I really do like, actually.
Yes. And so what I liked about this is that it's still hearkening. I like so many things about this episode. I love that Kaylar's back. So great. And the little surprise that keeps on giving is like introduced in this episode. And then also the Kittimer, we don't find out anything more about Kittimer, but Kaylar finds out something about Kittimer. So it's like, it's just more that the mystery is being revealed, but we don't push that storyline further because there's other things to talk about.
Totally.
But like, so my initial thought was like, yay, it's Kaylar again. Oh my gosh.
Yes. That was actually my initial thought too, where I was like, Klingon episode. And then I was like, ooh, Kittimer based Klingon episode. Cool. And then I was like, Kaylar? Fucking Kaylar's here? Oh my God. All right, everybody shut up. It's Kaylar. Like, I love Susie Plaxton.
She just crushes it in her Trek roles.
She really, really does. She really does. And like,
she makes an epic Lady Q in Voyager.
She does.
So good.
So this is the thing is, I love that Jonathan Frakes directed this episode because he definitely had some like thoughts about it, which I'll share a little bit further into our breakdown. But you know, people had a lot of thoughts about Kaylar. A lot of people loved her like we do. And a lot of people didn't like her because she was so just confident in her role that people thought it came across as pushy or whatever. But I just think like this woman is about her business.
Yes.
She is out there getting it done. And if it were a male Klingon doing this, they would just be like seen as
they would just be a regular person.
Like they would just be a regular person. But because you have different genitalia, suddenly you're like shrill and pushy and whatever. And it's like, no. Kaylar, I think, transcends like all of that. She just is like confident and she knows her shit and she's whip smart and don't get on her bad side.
She knows what she wants and she knows how to get it.
Yep.
And she knows what she doesn't want and she doesn't back down. She is like my hero. She's so great.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So the Enterprise is doing some routine analysis somewhere and they get intercepted by a Klingon ship and immediately it's Ambassador Kaylar on the view screen. And she's just such a fucking confident badass. Yes. I love her.
And everything about that intro, I love because you see the ship like pull in front of the Enterprise and you're like, uh-oh, they're about to start some stuff. Like what's going to happen? And then you're like, should we do red alert? Like, what is going on? Why is there a Klingon battlecruiser even here?
Yeah.
And then it's like, they're hailing us. And then when the view screen opens and you see Kaylar with this smirk on her face, you're like, oh, it's Kaylar. And then,
oh my God, yes.
Ambassador Kaylar, you know, and she's just like, I need to talk immediately. And he's like,
and I love that she has Captain Picard's confidence too. Like
she's like a member of the crew.
Yes, where he is like, Ambassador Kaylar, what a pleasure to see you. And she's like, some shit has come up and I need to talk with you. Permission to come aboard. He's like, of course. Like if Picard thinks you're a good egg, I think you're a good egg.
Yeah.
Hands down.
Yeah.
Now, of course, because Picard does not seem to understand social graces, he's like, hey, Worf, why don't you go pick up Kaylar?
I completely agree. And like,
there's a bunch of other security aboard the ship. Like, why do you have to keep fucking sending Worf for this?
Also, we don't always need somebody to intercept somebody on the ship, especially if they know their way around. But whatever, even if it's the ambassador, surely this is someone's job. Yeah. There's someone's job to just be nice to the ambassador and show them around and show them to their quarters and get them water. Surely somebody does this as a job, but we haven't seen this person yet on the Enterprise. Yeah. But like he sends Worf, and Worf is just like, sir, like it may make her uncomfortable to be around me because he took this discommendation in the last Kittimer episode because Duras, we found out that Duras's father was a traitor and had sold out the Klingons to the Romulans. Yep. But Duras threw it on Worf's father because he's part of the council and he's very influential. And if they would have found out, it would have splintered the whole government.
Like the House of Moog was rival to the House of Duras. Now, if you want
they're all rivals.
Yeah, of course they are. If you want more on that, that's season 3, episode 17, Sins of the Father. If you want to go back and have, give that a watch.
Yeah. So it's like, so Worf decided, okay, I will take the dishonor just so that the Klingon Empire doesn't crumble to pieces and fall into civil war. Yeah. So he took the dishonor, but now he's suffering the consequences every time they run into a Klingon ship where he's like, I can't be around Klingons because, they're not supposed to acknowledge that I exist and all this stuff. Yeah. Yeah. So he says that to Picard, and Picard's just like, you're an officer of my ship, and I'm not going to have you run and hide every time there's a Klingon ship, which I did appreciate.
Fair.
That Picard's like,
that's fair.
Yeah, you're not going to be running and hiding. But at the same time, for him to be the only one that goes to meet Kaylar was totally a lack of emotional intelligence. We talked last week about Riker having emotional intelligence. Picard, not so much.
Maybe
all the
not
time.
So much. Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes he's like just oblivious. And so Worf's just like, all right, I rescind that request and I will take care of it. And thankfully it's Kaylar. Kaylar could care less about any of that.
Yes.
If it was,
and that's one of the things I love about her.
But if it was any other Klingon, that would have been a really sticky situation to put Worf in for no reason.
Yeah. For no reason whatsoever. And to also make like the incoming Klingons feel super fucking uncomfortable, which is the last thing you want to do.
Yeah. Now, but in this case, this was the perfect person to send because Kaylar and Worf have a special little history. Although last time they were at each other's throats, then at the end they were at each other's throats in a fun way. Yeah. And so he goes to,
and as it turns out,
he goes to meet her in the transporter room, and some random new transporter person, because we've discovered anyone could do that job. Yep. We don't really need O'Brien.
I have no training, and I could do that job really well.
Yeah, we only need O'Brien when you got to like rip panels up and whatnot. But in any case, so somebody is like, oh yeah, two to beam up tier ready, and Worf's just like two, yeah, Kaylar and who else? And then when the beam happens and you see his eyes dart like way down, and you're like, whoa, and then you look
Kaylar and a teeny tiny little Klingon,
a tiny little bite-sized, pocket-sized Klingon,
and I immediately thought of Maury Povich. You are the father. I was like, oh shit.
Now, and what a way to find out.
First of all, that is the most Kaylar way to be like, hello, Worf, missed me, did you? Also, this is our son. Like, what?
Yeah. You couldn't have given me a phone call earlier. I feel like you had years to make this call.
You know what? At least 3 or 4, because like this kid is like 3, if not older. Yeah. But he's so teeny, it's tough to tell. But in my mind, I just saw Worf like kind of counting with his fingers, like, shit, when was the last time we hooked up on the holodeck with that calisthenic program?
She's not gonna show up on the ship with somebody else's random kid.
No, she sure as shit
like
won't.
Even if that was someone else's kid, like let's just say she had a kid with someone else.
She would never claim Worf as the father if he wasn't.
Yeah, she wouldn't have brought that kid on board.
Nope.
She only brought that kid just to be like, hey, Worf, look what I got. What?
You know what? This reminds me of like when my students are doing something they know they shouldn't be doing. And when you give them the look, they go, what? As if they don't fucking know what you're referring to. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Exactly. Right. So this is Kaylar and she's like, hello, Worf. And then goes to like bite his eyeball or whatever. And he's looking at this little kid and she's like, I don't know why you're so upset. What? It's like, Kaylar, girl, you are the father. This week on Maury.
Yes.
So Kaylar is very clearly the boy's mother because in the next scene, she's being really sweet with him and really adorable. And
she drops him off at the nursery to play with the other kids.
Yes. And Worf is like, oh, fuck, how many years ago was it that we did that calisthenics program? Yeah. Oh, God.
Worf already knows. Worf knows this is not some kind of, and Kaylar's not the type to just be like slinging around random people's kids. Like if she's having anybody's kid, she's going to be very specific with who. Yeah. Like you know how Kaylar is. So this is for sure your kid. And she brought him here in this really ridiculously shocking way.
Super shocking.
She wants you to know you have a kid. She wants you to accept the kid. But also for some reason, she just couldn't tell you in any other way but to throw you off your game because that's how she rolls.
Because she doesn't give a shit. Yeah.
So, so Worf is just like stunned watching her like, okay, baby, here's the blocks. Okay, I'm going to see you later.
Love you. Bye, honey. Yes. Yeah. And he does not want to talk to Kaylar due to his discommendation. And I love that Kaylar's like, I don't give a shit about that. I don't care. Which same girl, same. Like that does not, nope. That doesn't have any bearing on like how I feel about you or how I like interact with you.
And as Worf says later, you have no regard for our customs though. Like this is like, our customs.
I don't.
Yeah, and she's just like, that's only like, she's like, I'm half human. That's part of our customs. And that I reject. Like I reject that part.
Yes.
Nope. That's not going to change how much I love you. And it's not going to change how I treat you at all. And I could care less.
And I love that she does that. And I mean, I relate to that very, very much because I think standards and traditions are all very important and all that. But when they start dictating how you should live your life, that's when it becomes a problem. And I'm like, yeah, no, I'm not doing that. Like, I'm just not doing that. Now, we find out that the reason that she's there, besides dropping this baby bomb on him, is that the Klingon Empire is at this critical junction and they're facing civil war, which, you know, they always are. But two factions in particular are trying to seize power. And only Kempek, who we met in Sins of the Father, who's the head of the Klingon Council, has been able to maintain peace, but now he's dying. And he wants to meet with Captain Picard aboard his ship alone, which is like, oh, okay.
Yeah, but Kempek's no danger. Like Kempek is actually a really good dude.
No,
like,
no. It's not. No, I didn't think of it as danger. I just thought like you want to meet with a human alone to like discuss some things that will have like a great deal of bearing on the Klingon Empire into the future. That to me just like smacks of like Klingons are going to have a real problem with this later, where they're like, why is a human involved? Why is he in our business? Like,
it's very untraditional and very suspicious. Right. And Picard's also thinking that like, why am I in the middle of this at all? And then when I heard that Kempek was dying, it was like, oh, like I immediately thought like cancer or something, but not cancer because I think they cured that at this point in the show. Yeah. But something like that, some, irreversible, uncurable old age disease or something. And so he comes in. Yeah, it turns out he's been slowly poisoned over the last few months or years or whatever.
Yeah.
So that, which is uncurable and irreversible, but it's not like he's dying of natural causes. Yeah. Somebody killed him so they could take power.
Somebody's lacing his fucking wine with polonium, like some KGB underground shit. And I was like, they did it Jesus.
In such a sneaky way. Like Klingons are not KGB. Like they're up in your face. They are like guerrilla warfare, shoot you in the face type of people.
Yes. Yeah.
Or like just, stab you with the batleth. But to like poison somebody, and he said that he was just like, it's the reason. So he calls Picard in to help him mediate this governmental issue, which Picard should not be involved in, which Picard says I should not be involved in. No one's going to like this. The Federation's not going to like it. The Klingon homeworld sure isn't going to like it. So he was like, I respectfully decline. And Kempek's like, you can't. I already called the delegates here and they're on their way. He's just like, how dare you? Like,
which fair point.
Fair. He's like, how dare you do this without my consent? I never gave you
it's
permission.
Like, do you want to come to this party I'm having? No, I don't. Great. You're bringing the appetizers. What? And I already told everybody you're bringing your famous fucking cheese ball appetizers. Yeah. What? Like, no.
And it starts in 3 hours. So be there. I have your name on the invitation.
Also, there's a dress code. Yeah. You're like, double what?
Yeah. And it's just like not cool. And he's just like, how dare you do that without my permission? And Kempek's just like, if I would have asked you, you would have said no. And Picard's like,
a child's defense.
I sure would have, because
sounds like a child's defense. Why did you sneak out? Well, if I would have asked you if I could go to that party, you would have said no. That's correct. I would have.
Right. So then why do we even ask the question? There's so many circles here.
Exactly.
So it turns out that he's like, yes, I want you to kind of mediate between the two diplomats. And he's like, I can't do, it's Klingon government. And Kempek's like, no, it's not. This is very simple. There's two. It's just whoever's the strongest wins. There's 2 challengers only. It's not like 7. There's 2 guys. Whoever is strongest will kill the other one. And then he becomes the leader. You don't really have to do much. You just facilitate the 2 of them fighting. That's easy. Anyone could do it. What I really need you for is to find out who killed me, because to poison somebody is a Klingon, has no honor. And it's just completely cowardice. Like they should have stabbed me in the back like a true Klingon. Yep. But to poison me is just
they wouldn't even stab you in the back. They would stab you in the front, because they're very upfront about it.
Unless it was Duras. But still, like come on, poison is just really sneaky because you never see your killer. So he was like, that's all I want to know. I don't care if I'm dead afterwards. I just want you to find my killer, because that's not cool.
I think that the way of assassinating Kim Peck was actually very, very interesting because it's extremely un-Klingon, right?
Right. So you're like, who could it be?
It absolutely.
But it's very Romulan.
Yes, it is. It absolutely reminded me though of like people who were like poisoned to death knowingly in history, like Napoleon when he was exiled on Elba at the end of his life. Like all of his food had like microdoses of poison, so he knew he either could starve to death or die from the poison. So he just ate his food and drank his wine and like died of this poison. That's my recollection about it. Now I may be incorrect in that, but I'm pretty sure I'm not. Like he knew, and he had written in his letters, like to others, like knowing his food had been poisoned, which is just a very interesting way of like killing somebody, because it's like very, very slow way of killing someone. Like if you want to off somebody, cruel. It's very, very cruel. Yeah. There's a level of cruelty to it that's like on a whole other level. It really is. Now we learned that the two challengers to the Klingon Supreme Command position are Gowron and Duras. And of course we met Duras in Sins of the Father, and it was Duras's father who betrayed the colonists on Kittimer. It wasn't Worf. So Picard is like, well, shit, I really don't have much of a choice. I have to accept my role as an arbitrator. And then it kind of cuts to the Enterprise where Worf pulls Alexander aside because Alexander is not playing fair with the other kids. And he's like growling at them and whatnot. And he's like, you must play fair with the other children. You must earn your victory. He takes Alexander to Kaylar, and Kaylar and Worf have this fight where he's like, I cannot claim paternity, which from Worf's point of view, I understand what he's saying. He cannot claim paternity to Alexander because Klingon is a patriarchal society, and Mog's dishonor has transferred down to Worf. And so then Worf's dishonor taking the discommendation, which will down to Alexander and any offspring he may have. And I love that Kaylar is so fucking smart. She's like, why did you accept this discommendation? You were fighting the charges, and then all of a sudden you just accepted the discommendation. But like, as they're getting into this, like actually Worf and Kaylar are hailed to the bridge before, Worf is sort of saved by the bell. He's like, I don't have to answer that. Commander, come to the bridge or whatever. It's like, yep. Okay. Gotta go. So he's sort of saved by the bell on that one.
So, but in this scene, cause I'm just going through my notes because there were a couple points here that I thought were really interesting. So one thing was, so he didn't want his dishonor to spread to Alexander. Kaylar doesn't care about it. And this is the point where he says, you don't respect our ways. And she's just like, I don't respect that. Like that. That's crap. Like you're his father and you should claim him. Should I just tell him he has no father? Whatever. Yeah. And he's just like, what if Alexander someday wants to go back to the Klingon homeworld and participate in that culture? He's going to be a pariah.
That's a fair point.
He's not, basically he's saying you're taking away options that our child could have in the future by me claiming him, and I'm not going to ruin his life. And Kaylar's just like, he's going to find his own way. He doesn't have to go back to Klingon. He can if he wants to, but let him find his own way. So they both have really good points, right? Kaylar is like, I'm not on Klingon. I'm an ambassador. I'm going all over the place. Like he's not on Klingon. He doesn't have to worry about that. But then Worf has a great point of saying, however, if he ever wants to go back to Klingon, this would ruin his life. So it's a really tough situation for them to choose for his future. And because Worf wants to totally claim him and everything, but doesn't want to ruin his life. And he's doing the honorable thing, which actually looks like not an honorable thing. It's a really tricky place, but not
claiming the paternity of this boy.
So he gets saved by the bell.
He really does. He really does.
And in the ready room, when he's talking to Picard about, whatever's coming up, he mentions to Picard, like, you cannot let Duras win. You cannot. And Picard's just like, I'm going to arbitrate this thing. It's going to go the way it goes. I'm going to follow the Klingon law. And that's that. And Worf is just like, but Duras is a traitor. His father was a traitor, blah, blah, blah. And Picard's like, wait a minute. I know Sins of the Father's a thing with you guys, but it's not with me. I'm not going to put his father's crimes on him. His crime is framing your father. Like that was his crime. Yeah. But what his father does not. And then he also was like, this point I really appreciate, is that he said, you know what, Worf, you chose to take that discommendation. So you also chose to live with the consequences. And this is what those consequences are. And I was like, ooh, that's hard to hear, but also true. Worf chose that. So he can't now turn around and be like, I want to fight. It's like, you already agreed to not fight.
Case is closed, buddy.
Case is closed. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. And Kaylar starts to become like extremely suspicious of this commendation and what like Duras has to do with it and all of that. So she actually starts poking around, and I love seeing her start to kind of investigate more and more. Now Picard, of course, needs to like buy time, because as this rite of succession is happening aboard the Klingon ship, an explosion goes off and knocks a bunch of people out and kills several Klingons. And so there has to be this full investigation as to who planted this bomb. Again, a very sneaky way to try to kill somebody or disrupt proceedings,
poison
like this.
And a bomb. That's not how Klingons roll.
This is not how they roll. They just stab you in your throat.
Daggers.
Yeah, they just stab you in your throat and call it a day. And everybody goes, well, I guess that's that. And they just step over the lifeless body and go about their business. Like this isn't. And I love that there's like cultural norms for these aliens that that we know of. So it's all very, very suspicious. And, there has to be an investigation as to what happened. So Picard is like, I cannot just name a successor just like that. I need to buy time. So he meets with Kaylar, and she's like, well, as arbitrator, you have the right to choose any like means of succession that you would like to observe. You can choose, wink, wink, the ancient one, which takes like hours or days even, because each of the candidates for succession has to like list all of their battles and their victories and like why they think they should be voted, whatever. And so that's what Picard does. And I love that Picard is sort of using his brains too, to be like, how do we sort of stall here?
So before that happens, right before she goes into the ready room, she's having another conversation with Worf. And this time it's a lot less heated than the previous one. They're both just kind of like, all right, like, let's talk. And Kaylar says, you know what? I wanted to tell you. I wanted to tell you that we had a son. I wanted to tell you from the beginning, but I was afraid. I didn't know how to. And so this is how I did it. And she also says, remember last time when I left, you said that you'd be incomplete without me. Well, I'd be incomplete without you. And I told you I was scared to take the oath. I didn't think I was ready, but now I'm ready. Now we have a kid together and all this stuff. And I've had time to think, and I realize I'm ready to take the oath. So they start to take the oath. They actually start to kind of get married. And then Worf stops halfway through and it's just like, I can't.
Oh, I did not see that as them taking the oath. I thought that they were just gonna have sex.
No. The oath is when you have to say certain words, like you say words and then she says words and then that's the oath. Okay. Because last time after they finished having sex, he started to say the words.
Oh, that's right.
She was like, stop. No. Yeah. And he was like, blah, 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 blah. And she had to say her part. And she was like, no. And she left.
Okay.
But this time he started to say the words and she started to say the words. And then he started to say the next words. And then he was like, no, I can't. Like, I can't put this dishonor on you and Alexander forever. So then he just leaves. And you're like, oh, that is so heartbreaking because she's ready now. She's ready to get married.
Now she's ready.
He's been ready. She's been ready too, but now she's admitting that she's ready. They can get married here and now. And it's like he missed that opportunity, which is just really sad.
Yeah, considering what happens the rest of the episode. You're like, no.
Exactly. And then that's when she's just like, darn it, like it's this, whatever this dishonor is, that's what's keeping you from marrying me. And you are not a quitter. You are not a traitor. I don't understand why you would have accepted this dishonor under any circumstances. You went there ready to fight and you came back having admitted defeat. What is going on? And he's just like, I can't tell you, I have to go. And then after she kind of talks to Picard about this new strategy, she says, one last thing, there's a personal request. I know you were there with Worf during his trial. Can you tell me what happened? And Picard's like, I'm sorry, that's, privileged information between attorney client, whatever, he's just like, I can't say anything.
I feel like the entire fallout of later in the episode could have all been avoided if Picard would have just told her what happened.
I don't think it was Picard's place to tell her. It was Worf's place.
It wasn't, but it could have avoided all the other fallout that happened.
Which later it also could have if Worf would have told her at any point and all the times that
I don't know why he didn't tell her, because listen, at no point does it become clear to the rest of the crew. It doesn't become clear to me, at least, that any of the senior staff member realized that she brought a boy aboard with her and that it's Worf's boy. Like nobody else talks about it. I mean, the boy is seen around the ship because, mom and dad drop him off at daycare or whatever, but like, And none of the other senior bridge staff seem to nobody acknowledges that there's this little kid now tagging around the ship, and it's clearly Worf's kid.
Clearly, no one's saying there's a little Klingon boy on board. Did anybody notice that? Which, by
the way, not that we needed a paternity test, but I mean, last week Ishara Yar was given a DNA test immediately to determine that she was Tasha's sister.
Yeah, at no point was Beverly untrustworthy.
I know, but at no point was it Dr. Crusher, can you run analysis on this little boy and just make sure he's mine for sure? I mean, considering that mom has disappeared, she comes back years later and there's this little child in tow, and it seems like it's his, but DNA tests aboard the Enterprise are a dime a dozen and take 4 seconds and are painless. Maybe just run the DNA test just to make extra sure. I don't know.
Yeah, it wouldn't make any difference though. And if anything, it would make it worse because Worf is trying not to claim the child to not give him dishonor.
That's true. I mean, that is true.
First of all, he didn't need it because he trusts her. But even with it, it would have defeated the whole purpose of trying not to claim him to trying not to dishonor him. Right?
This is true.
So then Kaylar starts doing some investigation on her own because no one will tell her anything. And she discovers the truth on her own.
Yeah.
She puts the pieces together and she's like, I know exactly what happened because she knows who Worf is and the kind of man he is. And she knows who Duras is and the kind of man he is.
Yes.
And you're just like, man, girl.
Yes. And while all this is happening, Geordi and Data are able to discover that the detonator from that bomb is a Romulan device. There's only one race that uses this particular type of detonator. So the race is on to find out who's working with the Romulans. And the second I hear Romulans, I'm like, okay, Klingon, Romulan, Khitomer, not Gowron, Duras. Yeah, exactly. Duras.
It's it's like a 6 degrees of separation thing, but it's only 2 degrees.
It's 1.25 degrees for fuck's sake. Yeah. So now,
right. Which again, though, what I felt was, and I guess maybe I wish this was different in the episode. I felt like this could have been a good way to set up Duras for someone else in the council if they knew, but the other guy didn't appear to be someone in the council. He was just a wealthy family, strong family, whatever. But I thought this would be a clever way to set him up to make it look like it was Romulan, but really it was Duras. But I don't think all that was going on. I think it was just straight up the Romulans were pulling the strings.
Yeah.
That's all that was going on here, which actually is, I'm sure, what's going on because Romulans are super sneaky. Romulans would poison somebody. Romulans would set off a bomb at this critical time to throw suspicions or whatever.
Agreed.
They're all sneaky like that.
Yeah.
So it's
no,
this was legit. And then they talk about even though they've been blood enemies for 75 years, if the Klingons and Romulans do team up together, the Federation is pretty screwed.
Yep.
Because the Romulans are as strong as the Federation, but the Federation's allied with the Klingons.
Yes.
So they've got a little ace up their sleeve. But if the whole Klingon Empire is being secretly run by Romulans and we're pretending that the Klingons are in charge, but they're really figureheads, that could be destruction for everybody.
For everybody. Absolutely.
That's bad news bears for everybody.
Absolutely. Now, as Kaylar is getting closer and closer to this truth, Duras gets word from the Klingon High Council that Kaylar is poking into business she shouldn't be poking into, and he rushes to stop her.
And I love that scene between not between Duras and Kaylar.
Do you mean Gowron?
But between Gowron and Kaylar.
Yeah. So a little bit before this, Gowron does go to meet with Kaylar, and he's like, why is Picard? Yeah. Why is Picard choosing the slowest method to choose the successor? Why? This all kind of smells sort of fishy. And I love that Gowron not so subtly drops hints that I don't know, if I'm maybe chosen as the successor, there might be some incredible positions and opportunities for you coming your way. And she's like, opportunities coming my way if you're chosen as the successor to the Klingon High Council. And then she basically cuts him down to size and kicks him out, and which I fucking love. Now we have this other conflict where Duras rushes over to confront Kaylar with poking into things he does not want her poking into. And there's this little cut scene where Beverly meets with Riker and tells him her findings, that one of Duras's men actually had a bomb implanted in his forearm to go off. It was a suicide bomb to take out Gowron's men as well, and potentially, Picard or whoever else happened to be in the proximity.
Right. And Riker mentions, well, that is an honorable way for a Klingon to die. To kill yourself while taking out an enemy.
Yes.
Is totally in line with Klingon.
With their cultures and values. Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Now, Worf and Alexander go strolling through the ship, and they walk in to find Kaylar has been fatally attacked. And it is so traumatizing, even as the viewer, to see them walk in the room and suddenly Kaylar's nearly lifeless body is slumped over this ottoman, and there's blood handprints everywhere and like broken glass and shit. And you're like, oh my God. So not like what we thought we'd be walking into. The first time I saw this episode, I was like, oh my God.
Yeah, me too. I remember the first time I saw this episode because
it's just like, holy
I didn't think that was going to happen. You don't usually see people get killed outside of like a battle. You don't usually see people get killed at all, actually, because they always have their phaser set to stun. So you very rarely see people actually die. Sometimes you see a ship blow up, so you know they died, but you don't actually see them die. And then you saw the confrontation, but she had a confrontation earlier and she stood her ground. So you're like, maybe they just had a fight or whatever. But you walk in, you see this bloody body and you're like, what the?
Oh my God.
It's so shocking. It's so shocking.
It really is.
And you're like, well, certainly she's not going to die though. Like, yeah, she was attacked. But I mean, we last week we saw Ishara get phasered in the chest and she was fine in the next scene. She was totally fine. So we're like, oh, okay.
She had a mild chest cold feeling for like a day and that was fine. Yeah.
Yes. So we're like, even if she's bloody, like, of course she's going to survive. Like, of course they're going to just rush her to sick bay and patch her up and she'll be fine in the next scene. But she dies. And Worf goes to grab her and he's like, go run. And she's only able to say no. And he's like, Duras, which kind of perfect. And she calls for Alexander and takes his hand and places it over Worf's hand. And she draws her last breath and dies. And I was like, oh my God. Now, a couple of things. I understand that trauma manifests itself differently for everybody. But I gotta say, I was a little bit put off by like watching this little child, Alexander, look at his mom as though he was like watching grass grow. He's like, super boring. Like he just seems so effing bored. Like I would have thought, like, even if he wasn't screaming and crying and he had gone into a state of shock and was just like, but like he didn't look surprised or scared or even thrown off. It just kind of sounded like, hey, Alexander, finish these math problems before you go out and play. And he's like, like he just seemed like mildly annoyed and extremely bored. And then I'm sure it's hard to direct a little kid though. I'm sure that's really true, which is why a lot of people don't work with little kids.
Yeah. Well, this actor in particular was actually recast. So he only plays Alexander one time. And the next time we see Alexander, which anytime we see Alexander is too fucking soon for me because I can't stand this character, but he's actually played by a different boy. And that's the character that I find super annoying. This one is just like, he's just a little like, he's just like a little button walking around. Like he's just teeny and like cute. He's got a little wrinkly forehead, like a little forehead thing. But it was like no tears or shock or anything. It was so weird to me. But Worf starts screaming in pain. And it reminded me a lot of that. Was it Heart of Glory? That episode? I think it was season 1.
It was Heart of Glory. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Where the Klingon like
where they scream when someone dies. Yeah.
And they do the scream to like send his spirit to the whatever their version. Thank you. And Worf fucking bolts it to his quarters to grab his batleth. And by the way, this episode is the first appearance ever of the iconic Klingon batleth. Visual effects supervisor and martial arts expert Dan Curry designed Worf's batleth for this episode and worked with Michael Dorn to develop the movements used in wielding the weapon. So this is the first time we ever see a batleth, and I love that it becomes so freaking iconic to not only the show, but to the Klingon people. Like it's super, we've never seen a batleth before.
That's interesting. I didn't realize we hadn't seen a batleth before. I wonder what kind, maybe they just had daggers, what kind of weapons they had in that other Klingon episode where Worf went back to the homeland.
Yeah, they had like daggers and like knife looking things. But yeah, the batleth is dope looking. It's the super fucking cool.
Glorious. I saw these really cute earrings on Etsy that are little batleths. And I was like, oh my gosh, I want this so much, but I just couldn't think of a place to wear them to. I guess everywhere really is the great place for
everywhere.
batleths.
But I'd also be afraid that like, because the ends would like poke you, and that
because they dangle, so they would poke you.
I know, but even still, as you swing your head around and stuff, like it has little sharp ends. Although I'm sure for jewelry design, they make them less pointy.
Yeah, it wouldn't be so stabby. I think it would.
I think it would just be scratchy. But anyway, yeah.
So before he runs to get the batleth, he does call in Dr. Crusher, and the medical team is there, and they're doing what they can, which is nothing. But they're kind of looking around and scanning things, and you just see Worf standing in shock, and Alexander standing in the back in shock. And he just goes, he turns to Beverly, and he's just like, "Watch the boy," and he leaves. And she's like, "What? Watch the boy? What boy? Wait, where'd this kid come from?" There's not even a chance to see
Worf,
Beverly's
who is
reaction.
This? Yeah,
there's no chance to see Beverly's reaction. He just says, "Watch the boy." He pieces out. And then you see him go to his room, grab his batleth, take his comm badge off, put it on the nightstand, and then leave. And you're like, ooh, he's pissed. He's so mad. Like he's gonna.
Did you notice he also takes his baldric off, his like metal sash? He
rips I didn't even that off. That.
Yeah, he rips off his baldric, takes off his comm badge, takes the batleth, and takes off.
This is like the equivalent of when a girl's about to fight and she starts taking off her earrings, and taking off her. It's like that moment right there.
This
like
is exactly
taking off
that.
My earrings,
or
so
men
that you
like
can't
take off their shirts and shit. Now, in the background in Worf's quarters, I noticed something, and I wondered if you did too. The poisoned claw that Yar used to fight with Yarina in Code of Honor. There's one of those on Worf's table in his quarters. And I was like, what the hell is that doing there? Like, he wouldn't have just been like, hey, do you guys have a spare so I can have as like a decor, like an objet on my table? So I was like, that's a super cool way to like reuse this thing, because, you know, Worf is Klingon. All of his like accoutrement on the wall are all like weapons. So it's like, well, that's a kick-ass kind of weapon. So I was like, hey, Yar and Yarina
are having a little flashback. Yeah, I didn't notice that at all. That's really
I did. And I actually went back to the Code of Honor episode and paused it and looked at it, and I was like, that is exactly that prop.
I'm sure it was the same prop. They didn't make another one.
Same one. Yeah.
But it's good to know that they don't throw them away or like just deconstruct them and make something else.
Oh my gosh. Those props get used all the time. And when we get to some other episodes, I will point out some things where it's like, this is this tool from this episode. Now it's this thing, which is cool. Now, Picard and Riker cannot find Worf, and it turns out he's beamed over to Duras' ship. And they have this full-blown fight. And I love that Worf was like, Kaylar was my mate. And all the other Klingons are like, ooh, like they all start backing up and forming a circle. Like they know this is law here.
Exactly, because he comes in and he's like, Duras, I want to fight you. Like I claim and somebody actually introduced him and says he claims his right to vengeance, which means you killed someone he loves, he gets to fight you to the death. And he's just like, you've been dishonored. You have no more rights in our society. So it's like, I don't even have to honor that because you're not even a thing. You're not even a member of our society anymore because you were dishonored. And then when he says Kaylar was my mate, then it's like, oh, okay, go ahead and hand me my sword. Like in that case, yeah, we do.
He's like, name your second. Yeah,
we do have to fight because we can't, neither of us can let this stand. I didn't know she was your mate. Maybe I wouldn't have killed her if I had known.
Oopsie.
But now that you told me, we do have to fight to the death. Well, like I can't back off from this one.
It's really important though that Duras not die, because Kempek and Duras are the only two people who know of Worf's innocence. And now that Kempek is dead, it's just Duras and Worf. And like Worf,
that's what Duras tries to say.
Yeah, he's like, if the proof of your innocence dies with me, and they battle it out, and Worf kills Duras in one of the best fucking death fight scenes, where he swings that GD batleth over his head like a helicopter and brings that blade of fury down right through fucking Duras's heart. And I was like, oh damn, right? Like as I'm watching this. Now, Riker and Data, who have been like, ruh-roh, we better beam over to Duras' ship and get Worf out of there before something happens. They walk in and they go, Worf! And he goes, kabam!
As the swing is coming, as the batleth is over Worf's head, about to deliver the death blow.
Yeah,
they come in and they go, Worf, stop, which is usually the point where somebody stops. Like they usually stop them right before that death blow.
That was what I thought. I was like, oh, he's going to stop him in the nick of time, and Duras is going to be like, you should have killed me or something. But no,
exactly. And he had plenty of time to stop, and he didn't. Like he had time to stop because they were like, no, Worf, don't do it. And he's like, like extra hard. And you're like, really did it. Snap.
Now, okay.
Like two deaths where you were like, wait,
what?
This didn't have to happen. Did that just happen? And that totally just happened. But at the same time, you're like, we can't let this fool just live after killing Kaylar in a bloody pile. We can't let him be like, well, I'm not going to kill you for my honor. Like anything less than killing him is not cool.
Yep. And you have destroyed Worf's life and his family and his Kaylar and you've killed Kempek and all this shit. So it's like, dude, you really got to go. Now, I do think it's funny that as soon as Worf deals the death blow, the camera pans to Riker and Data, and they are looking at Worf as though he just smells bad. There isn't like a shocked look. It just kind of, they sort of gave him this like quizzical, gross look. Like, is that what you're wearing? It was very like, but it wasn't like, oh my God, you know, which again, the shock, there needed to be more shock from the characters in this episode. And it just seemed like boredom. And is that what you're wearing? Like, no, you guys didn't nail the looks, but whatever. Now, Worf does get reprimanded by Picard for his actions. But Picard tells him, like, I understand why you did what you did. And, you know, the Klingon High Council sees this matter as close. Again, this is not our jurisdiction.
He didn't break any Klingon laws. And that's what Worf said. Worf was just like, I followed the Klingon laws. That's what I did. Yeah. And Picard's just like, I get that, but you're also a member of the Federation and you also have to follow our laws. And if your cultural values clash with ours and you can't deal with it, then you need to leave Starfleet. Like, if you can't handle that, do you want to leave Starfleet? And he's just like, no, I don't want to leave. And he's like, good, because you would have thrown away a very promising career. And I thought, like, at the end of it, and he's just like, a reprimand will go on your official record. You can go. And I was like, wow, that's all you get for murder. But it makes sense in this context, right? Yeah. In the context of the Klingon law and the fact that he had every right to take revenge for his baby mama being slaughtered in a freaking bedroom. Like, you're like, well, okay, like we're all kind of okay with this.
Yes.
Ross is a dick. And he'd be the worst person to be in charge of Klingon. So we're all good. And now, you know, Picard's job is over because the two challengers, only one of them's left. He gets to win. He's now head of the council and we're done now.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's like, well, all's well that ends well, except for Kaylar.
Right. And
Duras. But who cares?
And the Romulans are now, oh no, we got to start over.
Yeah. Which, by the way, we don't see any effing Romulans this entire episode. So again, it was a little bit like last week's episode where like Ishara, like it was a Tasha episode, but we didn't have Tasha. This had Romulan like streaks signatures through it. But no Romulans. So in the last scene, Worf tells Alexander that, you know, I don't have any interest in being a parent. So I'm going to send you to Starbase 73 and like the Rozhenkos, my human parents, are going to pick you up and they're going to take you back to wherever the hell on Earth. And like, you're going to live with them. And they hug and that's the end.
Which is a little bit sad for little Alexander. It's like, I just lost my mom and I just got a dad and I just lost my dad.
Yes.
You know, it's like,
so like I have my mom, I just met my dad. I lost my mom. I lost my dad. And who the hell are these grandparents again? Yeah, it's like, what?
Right.
Earth? What are you talking about?
Grandparents, though, because
they
make the life of parents 1,000 times easier, you know, when they themselves
100%. 100%.
This is one of those cases where it's like, and Worf too is just like, you need a family, you need stability, you need a home. This is a starship and it's dangerous. And it's like, yeah, Worf, can you talk to the other parents on the ship?
As the head of security, I would think that you would maybe brief all the other fucking parents about this. Like, we're engaging that nursery. Yeah. Let's go to the neutral zone, everybody. Zip, zip, zip. Yeah. Okay. So do you have any final thoughts on this episode?
Yeah. My final thoughts, my initial thoughts were that I really love the story arc of the whole Kittimer situation and like because now Worf is pretty screwed. Now there's no proof that his father was not a traitor. Now he might have this dishonor forever. Now he has to claim Alexander because there's no Kaylar in the picture. And so now Alexander is going to be a traitor for the rest of his life if he ever wants anything to do with Klingon. And you're kind of like, and the Romulans were doing something shady. What's up with that? This was just like it was a really fun episode. And it was a little bit, I want to say backstory, but it wasn't. It just gave us some more flavors of who Worf is as a person, which I really, really like. Like, I love that he's not just like a body standing behind a panel.
Yes.
But he's got he's got these interests and relationships. And again, this is the part of Trek that I deeply enjoy, aside from all the possibilities and technology and stuff, is I love when they take the main characters and they give us a little bit more. They peel back some layers and you find out that they're people. I really like
absolutely.
That. So,
absolutely. I do love that. Thought. My final thought was R.I.P. Kaylar. She was only in 2 episodes of Star Trek
and so memorable
and made such an impact and was just so memorable. And I think that she's just the absolute model of like a confident, smart, tough, driven, loving woman who's just all these different facets in equal measures. And she's so well balanced and she's just not afraid of you or anybody. And I fucking love that about her. Next week, we're talking season 4, episode 8, Future Imperfect. Thanks for geeking out with us. We'll see you next week.
Bye. Thanks for geeking out with us. Be sure to join the crew at thetngpodcast.com to be the first to know when we do our live shows or host events exclusively for our members. We'll see you next time.